Welcome to today's explainer. Look, if you're anything like I used to be, your daily to-do list probably looks, well, a bit like a chaotic brain dump. You know the drill. You might have 30, maybe even 40 items scrawled on there on any given morning. Everything from finish that crucial quarterly report all the way down to buy more oat milk and clean the keyboard. And what actually happens? We just grind through the day, cross off maybe a third of those items if we're incredibly lucky, and then we go to bed feeling completely behind every single day. It's an exhausting cycle, right? You wake up overwhelmed by the sheer volume of stuff, and you go to sleep feeling guilty about everything you left undone. The emotional weight of that unfinished list is just draining. Well, today, we're going to fix that. We are digging into a fascinating piece of productivity history, a literally 100-year-old method that completely shifts how you manage your day. We'll uncover why that giant to-do list is actually working against you, and exactly how you can run a way better, much simpler system starting tonight, for absolutely free.
Okay, so let's dive into exactly why that massive 30-item guilt list is setting you up for failure right out of the gate. When you look at this huge list of chores and projects and random errands, your brain basically just shorts out. It experiences a sort of decision paralysis. What happens is, it starts treating every single item on that piece of paper as equally urgent. And because there are so many things demanding your attention all at once, you end up just bouncing randomly between them. You know how it goes. You do a little bit of everything. Maybe you draft half an email, then you suddenly remember, oh, I need to pay a bill. Then you do 5 minutes of research, but you finish almost nothing. Listen, having a massive list like that isn't actually ambitious at all. It's just a poorly designed system that makes you feel incredibly busy, rather than making you actually effective. The alternative we're unpacking today is so much simpler. A clean, strictly limited 6-item action list.
And the real root of the problem you experience when navigating that giant list comes down to a psychological phenomenon known as task switching cost. This is the literal lost time and honestly the heavy mental toll you incur every single time you jump between different tasks to refocus. Imagine you're deep into analyzing a complex spreadsheet. Suddenly, a notification pings. You drop the spreadsheet to answer an email, and then you try to jump back into the data. You don't just pick up right where you left off. You lose precious minutes and a tremendous amount of mental energy just trying to get your brain back into the zone. By bouncing between your 30 different tasks all day long, you are constantly paying this invisible, exhausting tax. You're draining your cognitive energy not by doing the actual work, but literally just by transitioning between the work.
Now, to understand just how incredibly valuable the cure to this very problem is, just think about the number 400,000. To see why, we actually have to go all the way back to the year 1918. A highly respected productivity consultant named Ivy Lee managed to score a meeting with Charles Schwab. Now, Schwab was the president of Bethlehem Steel at the time, which was one of the largest shipbuilders and steel producers in the entire world. Schwab was desperately looking for a way to increase the efficiency of his executive team during a highly demanding era. But Ivy Lee didn't hand him some thick, complicated manual, and he didn't introduce a massive new organizational chart. He just gave Schwab one single piece of advice. Schwab tested this advice with his executives, and the results were so profound that he credited it with sparking a major turnaround for the whole company. Schwab was so thrilled by the surge in productivity that he reportedly paid Ivy Lee a sum that translates to over $400,000 in today's money. All of that just for one idea.
So the craziest part is that this $400,000 idea was literally just one single sentence. At the end of each day, write down the 6 most important tasks for tomorrow in order of priority. Yep, that's it, nothing else. That is the $400,000 secret that completely revolutionized Bethlehem Steel. I know, it sounds almost too simple to be true, right? But the absolute genius of it lies entirely in its simplicity and the incredibly strict limitations it places on your wandering brain. By entirely removing the infinite choices of a massive to-do list, it absolutely forces focus. So how do we actually turn this one sentence into a daily habit? Well, it breaks down into a remarkably simple, completely free, 4-step system that we now know as the Ivy Lee method. It basically involves creating your end-of-day list, ranking those items, working in a really strict order, and then carrying any unfinished items forward. Let's break down exactly how you execute each of these 4 steps so you can maximize your effectiveness. All right, step 1 actually happens before your workday even really ends. At the end of your day, right before you shut down your computer or walk away from your desk, you are going to write down exactly 6 tasks for tomorrow. Notice the hard rule here. Exactly 6 tasks, not 7, not 20, just 6. This hard limit is basically the absolute magic of the entire method.
It forces you to actually make hard decisions about what truly matters rather than just passively listing everything you could possibly think of. It stops that chaotic brain dump dead in its tracks and forces strategic thinking before you even go to sleep, which means you wake up the next morning with total clarity instead of instant anxiety.
Moving on to step 2, you need to look at those 6 tasks you just wrote down and rank them. But here's the catch. You must number your 6 items 1 through 6 based on true importance, not just immediate urgency. This is a massive, massive distinction. We so often get tricked into doing things that feel highly urgent in the moment, like responding to a pinging Slack message or putting out some minor fire for a coworker, but those things often aren't actually important to our big long-term goals. You have to ruthlessly evaluate those 6 items and rank them by what actually moves the needle in your life or your work. Task number 1 needs to be the thing that brings the absolute most value, regardless of how loud or quiet it is.
Now, step 3 is where the real discipline comes into play. Tomorrow morning, when you start your day, you begin with task number 1, and you do not move on to task number 2 until task number 1 is 100% complete. Not partially done, done. And here's the thing I really want to stress for you. If task number 1 takes you the entire morning, or hey, even the entire day, that is perfectly fine. By doing this, you're trading that comfortable illusion of doing everything for the cold, hard reality of actually finishing what matters most. You are eliminating that awful task switching cost we talked about earlier entirely and allowing yourself the total luxury of deep, uninterrupted focus.
Finally, we reach step 4. So what happens when the day ends and you only finish 3 of your 6 tasks? Well, you simply carry them forward. Whatever you don't finish just moves directly into tomorrow's fresh list of 6. The absolute key here is that unfinished tasks don't just pile up separately into some mounting, out-of-sight backlog that ends up haunting your weekends. Because tomorrow's list is still strictly capped at 6 items total, bringing 3 unfinished tasks over means you only get to add 3 new ones. This mechanism right here, this is exactly what prevents that dreaded 40-item guilt list from ever piling up in the first place. It keeps your workflow incredibly honest, manageable, and firmly grounded in reality.
Now, while doing this by hand on a simple piece of paper or an index card works wonderfully, we can absolutely modernize this method. You can easily use a digital notes app or a dedicated task manager like Todoist. But listen, the digital tool only works if you maintain the physical rules. You still have to strictly cap your daily view at exactly 6 tasks. And perhaps most importantly, you have to completely resist the urge to add more tasks midday as random things pop up. If something new comes in, it just goes into a separate inbox for tomorrow's planning session, not today's list of 6. Always remember, the underlying method matters far, far more than the specific digital tool you choose to use. I really want to wrap up this explainer by challenging you to try this exact method for just one single week. Keep it to exactly 6 tasks, rank them by true importance, work them in strict order, and carry the rest forward. As you sit down tonight to write your very first list of 6, I want you to ask yourself a crucial question to help you find your true priority. If I only finish task number 1 tomorrow and absolutely nothing else, would it still count as a successful, good day? If the answer is yes, then you've found your real number 1. Thanks so much for watching, and I truly hope this completely reframes how you approach your day.